Sometimes it's not the darkness that should scare you. It's the way something watches from it, without moving, without blinking, without ever truly leaving. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Night Terror X. Tonight's episode takes you into the quiet hours where reality bends, and the presence you thought was just your imagination suddenly becomes real. From a lone crew member on the midnight watch who sees something impossible on deck, to a fog-choked coastline where even time seems to stop, to a man in an apartment building facing something unnatural across the street. These are not campfire tales. These are chilling, first-hand encounters that blur the line between the seen and the unseen. So grab your headphones, kill the lights, and ask yourself, if you saw something staring at you in the night, would you keep looking or run? If this video leaves you unsettled, hit that like button and share your own terrifying story in the comments. And if you've experienced something truly unexplainable, send your story to nightterrorxinbox@gmail.com. We might just bring it to life in a future episode. Ready? Let's dive into the dark. The cold deck. A friend of mine, Kyle, told me this after we went camping last fall. We were sitting around the fire when he looked off into the trees and said, "There's one place I still have nightmares about, and it's not on land." Then he told me the story I'm about to share with you. This happened about 15 years ago, when Kyle was 19. He just started working on freight vessels, massive cargo ships that haul goods across oceans. Back then, he was green, still learning the ropes, and was placed on an older ship called the Arden Mist, a rusting hulk that had seen better decades. He told me that even though it was seaworthy, it carried an eerie stillness, like the ship itself didn't want to be disturbed. The crew was all men, most of them seasoned sailors who'd worked together for years. As the new guy, Kyle had to earn their trust while dodging the usual barrage of jokes and hazing. It started harmless enough, comments about the ghost in cabin B12, or how the radar sometimes saw things no one else did. He laughed it off, said he didn't believe in ghosts, even though deep down he wasn't so sure. One night, about a week into the voyage, Kyle was just starting to fall asleep when 3 sharp knocks hit his cabin door. He got up, opened it immediately, and found no one. He chalked it up to some late-night prank and didn't think much of it until it kept happening. At different hours, always 3 knocks, always gone before he could catch whoever it was. The weirdest part. His cabin was in the middle of a long hallway, about 60 feet from end to end. If someone had sprinted away, he would have at least heard footsteps or caught a glimpse. But there was never a sound, just silence, stretching out like the sea beyond the hull. Kyle eventually asked about the cabins near his. One was occupied by a quiet man in his 60s named Laird, moved slow, kept to himself. Definitely not the running around pulling pranks type. The other cabins were empty, storage now, left over from when the ship carried a full crew decades ago. Then things escalated. One evening, while hanging up his shirt near the door, the knocking happened again, hard and sudden. This time, Kyle flung the door open immediately, expecting to catch someone in the act. The hallway was empty, not just empty, still, like the air itself held its breath. That was the first time he felt something was truly wrong. From that point forward, he started noticing a heaviness on board. He'd worked on ships before and after this one, and none felt like the Arden Mist. The crew didn't really hang out. They kept to themselves, moved with caution, and spoke softly, when near certain areas of the ship, like the laundry room or engine corridor, and no one ever wanted night shift. One of Kyle's jobs during those shifts was to do deck rounds, checking the cargo, making sure nothing had come loose. He carried a radio to stay in contact with the bridge, but sometimes, without warning, the radio would erupt in blistering static. Whenever he called the bridge to ask if they were transmitting, they'd say, "We didn't hear anything." Different radios, same interference. It was as if something wanted to cut him off. Then came the incident with the watertight doors. He was checking the lower deck around 2 a.m. when a steel door behind him, heavy and operated hydraulically, slammed shut. Alarms blared. He immediately radioed the second officer on the bridge, who told him no command had been issued. Stranger still, their panel showed the door as open. Kyle tried manually overriding it using the lever, which worked, though it took considerable strength. The officer promised to have engineering look at it. Kyle continued his rounds. When he got to the next section, the door again started closing on its own. He radioed in. Same response. No command had been issued. He barely got it open before it started closing again, and this time, the door behind him also began to seal. He was getting trapped. The corridor lights flickered, his radio hissed with static, and he made a split-second decision. He dove through the narrowing gap of the nearest door. Dangerous as hell, those doors could crush a person without hesitation. He hit the floor hard and rolled out, heart pounding. Engineering ran diagnostics the next day. All systems normal, no malfunctions, no errors, and most importantly, no logical reason for two independent door systems to fail at the exact same time. Things only got darker from there. One night, after another round, Kyle returned to the bridge. The second officer, Marcus, was pale, trembling, and spilling his tea as he clutched the mug. Kyle asked what happened, and Marcus could barely speak. Eventually, he managed this. "I heard you come in behind me. I asked if everything was okay. You didn't answer. I turned around and..." He choked. "And it wasn't you. It was this old man, pale, eyes wide, just staring at me. Standing so close I could smell seawater on him." Then he vanished, just vanished into the air. This wasn't a guy prone to nerves. Marcus had a reputation for being calm under pressure. But that night, he looked shattered. Kyle's worst night came about a month later. The knocking had stopped. Or maybe he'd stopped reacting to it. You can only stay scared for so long before exhaustion dulls the edges. He went to bed after reading for a while, turned off the light. As his eyes adjusted, he realized someone was standing over him. A tall figure, motionless and dark, no features in the dim. He blinked. It didn't move. He figured it was his imagination, until the figure sat down on the bed, right on his legs. Kyle says he could move his arms, his chest, his head, but his legs were pinned down by something immensely heavy. The mattress dipped, and the blankets tightened. He tried yanking the covers free, kicking, reaching for the light switch just out of reach. His heart pounded like an engine, sweat cold on his skin. He swung wildly with his fists. Nothing, just air. Then the weight lifted, the figure rose, and his legs were free. Kyle snapped on the light. The room was empty. After that night, he couldn't sleep without a nightlight. Even back on land, long after the Arden mist had vanished from his life, he'd wake up at 3 a.m. convinced someone was in the room with him. He never found out the history of that ship, and maybe that's for the best. But sometimes, when he's alone in the dark and hears a faint 3 knocks, he wonders if something from that voyage still knows where to find him. So, do you believe in ghosts? because Kyle does now. The Man in White. So I was talking to my uncle one night, and he said something I'll never forget. There are places out there that don't care if you believe in ghosts or not. They just need you to notice them. At the time, I laughed it off. But that changed after what happened to me last fall, when I was working a night shift on the SS Meridian Hawk, a heavy-lift cargo vessel crossing the Atlantic. I was the second officer back then, pulling the graveyard shift, midnight to 4 a.m. It was pitch black outside, the kind of night where even the stars look like they're keeping their distance. The sea was calm, which almost made things feel eerier, like something was holding its breath out there. I usually walked slow laps around the bridge to keep myself awake and keep the boredom at bay. That night started off just like any other. Around 1:30 a.m., I passed by the starboard side windows and noticed someone out on deck, walking toward the bow. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe one of the deckhands couldn't sleep and was out for some air. But even then, it felt off. Everyone's usually out cold by then, and there wasn't any work scheduled. Still, it wasn't totally unheard of, so I kept walking. The next time I passed the window, the person was standing perfectly still, right between cargo hold 1 and the windbreaker wall. His back was to me, facing forward. I paused. Something about the way he stood, still as stone, hands down, looking straight ahead, sent a chill up my spine. Then, without moving his body, he slowly turned his head and looked directly at me. And that's when I noticed the first detail that didn't sit right. He was wearing a full white jumpsuit, not red with reflectors like the rest of us, pure white. And he had an orange helmet, which I'd never seen anyone on our ship wear. Our standard issue was white. It immediately set off alarm bells. We're a tight crew, and nobody goes off uniform like that, especially not during the night shift. I stepped over to the radio console, keeping my eyes on him as he raised one hand and started waving. Not like a friendly, hey, more like a slow rhythmic side-to-side wave, like he was trying to get my attention or warn me. I picked up the radio and called out, "Hey, you good out there?" No response. Static crackled. I tried again. Nothing. All I heard was a low hiss, like the kind of interference you get when you're near something that doesn't want to be heard. And the whole time, he just stood there, staring, hands slowly waving like he knew exactly what I was doing. That's when it hit me. He shouldn't have been able to see me. The bridge lights were off to prevent glare, and we were backlit by the deck floods. From his position, I should have been a silhouette at best. But his head followed me every time I moved across the windows, like he could see my eyes behind the glass. At that point, I'd had enough. I turned on the bridge spotlights, bathing the deck in bright, cold light. And he was gone. No footsteps, no movement, nothing. Just a wide-open deck shimmering under the spotlights like he had never been there at all. I scanned every inch, thinking maybe he ducked behind a ladder well or slipped into the stairwell leading to the paint locker. But every possible hiding spot was locked up, tight. And I know they were locked hours earlier because I personally checked them before my shift. Still, I left the lights on for 30 minutes, waiting, watching, listening, nothing. I finally shut them off and spent the rest of my shift wired, every creak and clang echoing like a scream. When morning rolled around, I asked the rest of the crew if anyone had been out on deck. They all said no, and I believed them. They looked groggy, genuine, even confused when I told them about it. Nobody had access to a white jumpsuit. We didn't even carry any on board. And that orange helmet. It wasn't from our stock, either. I even went back to check the stairwell and storage areas. Locked. Still sealed. No way anyone slipped past me without leaving a trace. The weirdest part? I saw him for a good 5 minutes. Watched him walk across the deck. Saw the light hit his helmet. Made eye contact, if that's what you'd call it. I turned away. Called him on the radio. Walked to the other side of the bridge. And every time I looked back, he was still there. Unmoving. Waving. Until the light hit him. Then, gone. I don't know what I saw. I don't claim to have answers. All I know is that someone was out there that night. And the part that still haunts me, that wave, it wasn't asking for help. It was saying goodbye. The signal below. A friend of mine, Ryan, told me this after we went hiking along the coast last winter, and I swear to you, I've never heard him sound so shaken before. He said it started with a message out of the blue. A guy he used to be close with messaged him about a giant metal buoy that had supposedly washed up somewhere along the shore near Edgewater, Maine. No one knew how it got there. Buoys like that aren't supposed to move much, let alone break loose and drift dozens of miles inland. But this one had just shown up one morning, like it had been placed there on purpose. They hadn't talked in months, had a falling out over the people Ryan started hanging with. But the guy said he wanted to take some pictures and maybe figure out where the thing came from. School was out for the week, and Ryan figured it was as good a time as any to patch things up. So he agreed to meet him. The shoreline was about 3 miles from town, not far from the old military station that's been decommissioned for years. Or at least, that's what people are told. Ryan's dad used to work there, and whenever he'd ask about the cluster of tall towers lining the beach, his dad would go quiet or change the subject. Said they were old weather monitors, even though they looked like they hadn't recorded a thing in years. They gave off this low hum if you got too close. Barely audible, but definitely there. Anyway, Ryan and his friend walked down past the dunes, through the brittle winter grass and patches of frozen seaweed. It was cold and weirdly silent. No birds overhead, no waves crashing, and the fog was creeping in fast. They figured they'd climb the cliff to get a better view of the shoreline. From there, you could usually see for miles, but as soon as they got to the top, things started going wrong. Ryan's friend pulled out his phone to check his GPS, and the screen just glitched, flickering, freezing, then rebooting over and over again. He said it was probably the cold. That made sense, until Ryan checked his own phone and saw the same thing happening. No signal, no bars, just a black screen and static. Still, they figured the buoy had drifted back out with the tide and decided to leave. But before heading down the cliff, Ryan's friend tried to snap a photo of himself sitting on the edge. As he aimed the camera, the phone died. No warning, just black. Like something had drained the life right out of it. Then the light changed. Through the fog, a sharp shaft of sunlight broke through the clouds, hitting the water like a spotlight. It looked surreal, warm and inviting, like something from a dream. Ryan turned to say something, but stopped. He felt it. That unmistakable feeling, like they weren't alone. He turned around, and that's when he saw the man. He was maybe 50 feet away, slowly walking toward them along the old path behind the towers. Except, he was getting closer, way too fast. Like every blink brought him 5 steps nearer. Ryan grabbed his friend's arm and whispered, "Do you see him?" His friend squinted and said, "Yeah, but I can't see his face." Ryan didn't understand at first. Then he looked harder. The man's face was wrong, not blurred, not covered, just absent. Like there was nothing there to focus on, just empty skin and movement where eyes should be. And then the sound came. A shrill, metallic scream tore through the fog. It was like someone dragging steel across glass, mixed with a dying animal's cry. Ryan described it like it went straight through his bones. They didn't wait. They ran. The snow crunched beneath their boots as they tore down the hill. Behind them, the sound didn't fade. It followed. And when Ryan glanced back, the man was now walking just behind the rusted fence that marked the edge of military land, moving parallel to them, always behind, always watching, always there. They didn't stop running until the towers were behind them. And suddenly, everything went back to normal. The birds returned, swooping above the waves. The distant hum of ships drifted in on the wind. Ryan's phone buzzed with delayed notifications, texts, missed calls, all at once. It was like someone had flipped a switch. Whatever was happening, it was tied to that place. They didn't talk much on the walk back. Ryan's friend tried to laugh it off, but Ryan could tell he was rattled. He said he checked his phone later that night. The screen was shattered from the inside. No drop, no impact. Just broken. Like whatever they'd walked through wasn't meant to be recorded. Ryan said he doesn't go near that cliff anymore. Doesn't ask his dad questions about the towers. And every time he drives past that stretch of coast, he turns his music up loud enough to drown out any noise that might still be hiding in the fog.